Hello students, my name is Moon and this is He103 Lecture 8 Food Sources. We spend the entire semester talking about what we put in our bodies. Let's spend the lecture talking about where this food comes from. When we talk about food sources, then my focus is on how to keep the food safe. So it's one thing to pick and choose the ingredients we want in order to improve our health, but how do we know that the things that we actually buy say what they say, are what they say on the label and are safe as the manufacturer, as safe as the package, the label says? Well, the organization in charge of that is the Food and Drug Administration. They're in charge of all the things that may go into the body, which means, and also on the body. So cosmetics are also part of their jurisdiction. Of course, dietary supplements too. So those pills that you buy at the health food store. Things that go into our body. So radiation. So electronics also have to be cleared by the FDA. And things that we shouldn't be putting in our bodies, but we do anyway, which are legal, are part of the FDA. So I wouldn't be surprised if marijuana, now that it is legal, at least in New York State, is also monitored and regulated by the FDA. When a company comes up with something new and say, oh, our customers are going to love this, then the FDA is going to say, wait a minute, how do we know it's safe for your customer to put in or on their body? So it has to be cleared by them. So this entire list, and this is not the complete list, it's just an example of things that they are in charge of. That's a lot to cover. Companies are creating new products every day, and let's not forget that there's a lot of stuff coming into this country made by other countries around the world, and their health and safety laws may not be as strong as ours, or the health and safety laws that they do have are not as enforced as ours. So maybe somebody is trying to ship in something that's not healthy for us. Well, the FDA is supposed to be going around and making sure they are safe too, which is a problem now because the FDA is one organization. It has a limited staff, budget, and time to do all of this. And the reality is that they can't check it all. It's just impossible. Everybody, all the companies are trying to make new things, and it's hard to keep track of them all. And there are just sit along the coast in the New York harbor and watch these container ships coming in, full of things that New Yorkers are going to put into their bodies, and the FDA just does not have the resources or the time to check them all. So all they can really do is evaluate the statements that these corporations make, and at least proofread them, make sure that the things they do say are making sense. And every once in a while they do a spot check, which is they take a sample package and they have a look, and if the sample package clears inspection, then I guess the rest of that product line will be okay. And then finally, the last line of defense is when somebody really actually does get sick and they go to the hospital and the hospital figures out what happened, and they send a report to the local public health office, and eventually a copy of these reports are shared with the FDA. Then the FDA sends its investigators and then demands a recall notice for whatever it was that was the problem. There was a recent recall notice about a very popular fast food restaurant. Did anybody catch that? So one way that the FDA can reduce the work they have to do is if a corporation makes a new product and say, this is great, this is new, everybody's going to love it. Well, the FDA could say, I'm sorry, but you have to file all the appropriate forms that show and prove that you went through all the appropriate tests to verify that your product is safe. Well, that's a lot of work That's a lot of expense for the company. And is there any way to streamline the process? Well, there is. If all the ingredients of the new product were already proven safe before, and there is nothing in the process, or at least as the documents are filed says so, there's nothing in the process of creating this new product that is expected to change the chemical composition, expected to change the already known health profiles of each of the ingredients, then the FDA will say, all right, well, you put all these things together, each ingredient is safe, so we can assume that the product, the end product of this new idea is also safe. And that's called generally regarded as safe. For example, the cafeteria, the school cafeteria, you go there and you see that they took some, I don't know, some cereal and mixed it with yogurt and created a new breakfast parfait. Do they have to file forms with the FDA and send it through several batteries of tests and clinical trials to prove that this new product idea is safe for human consumption? No, they went to the supermarket, they bought a few boxes of cereals, they bought some tubs of yogurt. Each one of those have already passed FDA approval, and they just mixed it together. And so the breakfast parfait is generally regarded as safe. If this doesn't sound foolproof or airtight in terms of safety to you, well, it doesn't to me either. But again, it's one of those, don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. If you require the FDA to thoroughly and completely and scientifically check everything that is on the market in the United States for safety, then nothing's going to happen. It'll bankrupt the country, probably. There's just not enough money and time to check them all. So this is like we're doing what we can with what we have. What could a corporation do to make something that is not as healthy as they advertise to be? And why would they do it? So let's start with a why would they do it. And the main word is profit. After all, the company, the corporation, the farmer, they're in it to make money. They're in it to make a living. That's not an evil thing to do. I mean, you are doing what you do to make money. You're taking these courses in Queensborough Community College, hoping to get a higher degree so that you can get a better job. And I am giving this lecture not only because I love hearing myself talk, but also not only because I love teaching people, but also because I need the money. I have bills to pay. I have a retirement to prepare for. So everybody is in it to make money, and so are these companies. So that's not the evil thing. But something about the way money is made sometimes pushes people to take risks that other people may decide are not justified. So let's look at the way food industry makes money, which is profit, right? They put money they invest money into their business, and then they are able to sell their products at higher rates than it costs them to make it, and that's profit. That's revenue, which is the money they make from the sale of their goods or services, and then they subtract the cost of making it per serving or per delivery, and then what's left over is the money that the company can keep for itself. Now, what about the food industry? Like the things you buy when you go to the supermarket, or you walk down the aisles of the convenience store. What's going on? Well, what typically goes through your head? And that's going to be different for everybody. But you know what goes through my head? What's the cheapest? When I'm going through the aisles of the grocery store, I have my shopping list. I go to a particular item and I see multiple competitors all trying to convince me to buy their version of whatever it is I'm looking for. And what am I going to do next? I'm going to start comparing prices. And if one of them is cheaper than the others, especially if one is significantly cheaper, first I try to read the label and figure out why is it that cheap. But as long as the label doesn't look suspicious, and if I Google for it, go through my search engine, look for any clues why this is so cheap, and I don't see anything suspicious, then I'm going for the cheaper one. Which means that there is a kind of a ceiling, an upper limit of how much a food company can sell its product for. I'm not talking about those expensive stores like Whole Foods or Trader Joe's. There's a completely different dynamic going on. Rich people go there, and so the price of things are not as high on their list of priorities as it is for me. But for me, and I'm imagining it's for you too, listening to my voice, price is a very important consideration. It's a long way to say that there is a limit to how much a common everyday food item can cost. And you may say, are you crazy? Have you seen what inflation has done to these prices lately? Yeah, but between competitors, they can't go very far. Because as soon as one of the companies increase the product of their brand by a lot, then customers will jump to the cheaper version. And so they're going to lose, that company is going to lose sales to the competition. So revenue is pretty well locked in. Then the only place then that they can really mess around with the profit, or get as much profit as they can, is the cost. And when a corporation is selling millions and millions of product, or serving billions and billions of happy customers, then every penny saved per purchase adds up to millions of dollars for the corporation. So anywhere that they can find a penny, to scrape a penny off of cost, they're going to seriously consider doing it. This is not a course in business or economics. This is not a course. I'm not preparing you to be an MBA. So the oversimplified version of this is that the best ways for a corporation to save cost when they're making food is space, feed, time, and feed. I'm going to talk about animal feed, but plant feed can also apply here. Like when they're growing food in a farm from plants, and then they can reduce the cost of how they feed the plants, then they can increase profit. So let's look at each one of these. Space. So plants are easy to keep packed close together. Let's talk about animals. So for those of you who are vegans or vegetarians, you may think, this doesn't apply to me. And okay, I can see where you're coming from. But for those of us, the rest of us who do like to eat animal product, then space is absolutely a factor here. Okay, so if you Google for factory farm, that's a weird combination of words, right? Factory farm. Because when you think of a farm, you think of a bright red barn and rolling green hills and happy animals. And when you think of a factory, you think of giant, gray, ugly box buildings, and inside it's dirty and it's smelly and it's not healthy. So what's a factory farm? A factory farm is everything you just thought about that a factory looks like, but applied to farming. It's not barns, it's not happy rolling hills, it's gray, ugly, giant box buildings where they squeeze in animals packed so close together they can barely move around. Go use your favorite search engine and search for images of factory farms, and you'll see what I mean. Why do they do that? Why do they jam animals, those cute little animals, in such tight spaces, literally inhuman spaces, to save money? Because space costs money. It's per square foot of real estate, and real estate means taxes, and real estate means the larger the building, the larger the facility, the more there is to maintain. building operations and repair. So the more, that's kind of a fixed cost though. Once they build a building, that's it, they're going to use that building. So that's kind of fixed cost, but they can make the most out of that fixed cost by jamming as many animals as they can in there, so that the total amount of cost for the building is divided by the increasing number of product they can sell. A thing about jamming animals together in tight spaces is that when one gets sick, they all get sick. And you may think, oh, that's simple. Why don't they just take the sick animal, send it to a veterinarian, and then they'll be cured, and you put it back? No, you don't. They don't do that. They don't do that. You do that for your cat and your dog and your other pets, because your pets are part of your family, and they are very much an individual. You love them for their individualness. For factory farm animals, it's not about the individual, it's about a assembly line, a production process. So and remember, they're trying to save pennies per animal. They're trying to save, their real profits are from the small changes in cost per animal that they can take advantage of. So stopping a production line to separate out a sick animal is hurting profits. Also, paying somebody to recognize a sick animal is also hurting profits, because now you're paying an extra person a salary to do what, right? So separating out sick animals, especially animals that have a small symptom or sign of illness, that is just not cost effective. What can you do for infectious disease that can spread rapidly across a herd? You give antimicrobials, and let me change the word to antimicrobials, because it's not just antibiotics, which is for bacteria. It's also antivirals for viral disease like bird flu. And antiparasitics. So these are all antimicrobials. And what they do is they put the antimicrobials into the food that they give all the animals, whether the animals are sick or not. A problem, however, is that when you use antimicrobials inefficiently, inappropriately, then that creates resistance. It creates superbugs. So if you use them as a policy across your entire product line, then you pretty much guarantee the growth of resistant superbugs. Where do these antimicrobials come from? Well, from a lab, right? They come from science labs, but they are designed as an animal version of human antimicrobials. So the antibiotic they use for bacteria, there is a human version. The antivirals for a virus there's a human version. And when a superbug comes out from an antimicrobial from an animal, and then leaks out into the general environment, maybe catches a ride on one of the farm hands, the staff, and then makes their way over to the market and then into the city. And there is a real chance that these superbugs can jump species from animal, like cow, chicken, pig, to human. So these corporate farms are spreading superbugs into the human population. They are adding to this global problem of antimicrobial resistant superbugs. If you want to know more, you can search for the name. My thing timed out. I'll have to log back into Brightspace later. You can look into antibiotic superbug world, and you get I always skip the AI result, and you can get articles on antimicrobial resistance. Let me pause the video so I read through this. Okay, this looks like a good overview here. So let me add this to the slideshow here. The original link is a pediatric problem with antimicrobials in pediatric, but this is absolutely something worth looking into for you to check out too. Okay. For those of you who have been shopping for your own meats, especially chicken, but also beef and pork, you may have noticed that some of your favorite brands have these stickers on the label saying no antibiotics used, or we don't use a specific antibiotic. And what's happening is these corporations are responding to consumer demand. The public is, not all the public, but more and more of the public is becoming worried about antibiotics, but antimicrobials in general, that are showing up in their food. But there's a difference now. The general public who are not educated in the health sciences, or maybe even sciences at all, don't really know about how antibiotics work, and they're worried that while eating the food, they are putting these antibiotics into their body, and that's not really the concern. That's not really the problem. The problem is that overuse of antimicrobials by corporations across the world are causing superbugs. That's the problem. But the more companies that advertise we don't use antibiotics, antivirals in this factory, maybe they use it in other factories. The same brand can still use it in like other places, but at least this food, this package, this product line, they don't use it. Well, that means that they're responding to consumer fears. And if the word spreads, goes viral, pun intended, if the message goes viral and the entire food industry finally stops using antibiotics, antimicrobials, then the rise of superbugs will be slowed down. It won't be stopped because life finds a way, but it'll be slowed down. Now, unfortunately, what this means is if they stop using antimicrobials, then the animals can no longer be profitably packed close together, which means the price of space will go up, which means the cost will go up in order for them to keep their profits. So that's it, really. When you shop for meats, and next time you shop for meats, look for a version that advertises no antibiotics and compare it in price to the version that doesn't advertise no antibiotics. And you see that the non-antibiotic version is more expensive because they can't keep those animals so tightly packed together as well as they can if they did use antibiotics. Time. While that animal is growing up before it's mature, the company is not making any money on it because it hasn't sold it yet. It's not going to make any money until the animal is slaughtered, cut up into the sections of meat that the customers want, and then finally sold on market, which means that whole time it was growing up, the corporation is not making any money. It just keeps pumping money into that animal. Give it a place to sleep, give it food to eat, put a roof over its head, pay staff to keep an eye on it. All of that cost is being sunk into this animal, and only when the animal is finally sold to market will they finally make a revenue, which is profit. So the less time the animal spends growing up, the sooner the company can make a profit, and so the less time the animal grows, the more money the company makes. So what can they do to make an animal grow up faster? Hormones, growth hormones. And so that's what they do. Well, word got out, and an increasing segment of society is saying, I don't want no hormones in my animal meats. Which segment? The one with money. The one with money to spend. For me, I don't have that kind of money. I'm going to buy the cheapest meat on the rack. But for people who do care and have the money to care, they say, I don't want no hormones in my meats, and they shop that way. So sure enough, in the meat aisle, there are some brands that say we don't use a specific hormone, or we don't use any hormone. And that's actually a difference. Because when you read the package, if you care about these things and you read the package and it says we don't use something hormone, that all they're saying is we don't use this hormone. They never said, they're not saying we don't use any hormone. They may be using another hormone. It's only the stickers that say we don't use any hormones, then assuming they're telling the truth, that they're not getting away with lying about it, that there really is no hormone. One of the hormones they can use is anabolic steroids. Yes, those steroids that bodybuilders use to cheat the system, to make their muscles bigger so that they feel better, and etc., etc. They put that in animals to make their muscles bigger because that's what we want, right? We want to buy meat. We want to buy muscle, animal muscle. So there is a segment of the consumer, there's a section of consumers who say, I don't want no hormones in my meats either. And so they shop accordingly. And sure enough, corporations are responding to this demand, and they have two versions, a non-hormone version and a version that doesn't say anything about hormones, implying that they do use it. Compare the prices, you'll see the non-hormone version of the meat is more expensive. If you can afford it and you care, go buy that. If you don't see any of this in your supermarket, your grocery store, then go check out Whole Foods or Trader Joe's. They are full of this stuff. And that's one reason why I don't shop at Whole Foods or Trader Joe's. I can't afford to. So a common specific hormone that used to be used all the time was recombinant bovine growth hormone. And bovine means cow. Recombinant is a genetic technique, so RBGH. And there was a public relations problem as more and more people found out about it and got scared about it. So some companies started saying we don't use any RBGH in our cows, which is nice to hear, but they don't say if they're not using anything else. So, buyer beware. Okay, so what about hormones? Is it bad? It sounds bad, but is it actually bad for a human? Well, there is the theory that hormones that work on cows don't work on humans. Well, even the steroids, this may be like cow-specific anabolic steroid, and it's not supposed to work on humans. I'm not an expert on this, so I don't really know. I can't really speak to the safety, the actual safety of these hormones if it got into our bodies. Let's have a look at this link that I have for you here, and so this Food and Drug Administration, FDA.gov, they're saying that it is safe for humans to eat at any time after the animal is treated. And they're saying, so you can read all of this, and that's pretty much the gist, that the FDA says that health-wise, the hormones that these factory farms put in their animals is safe for human consumption. For the For the public, some people say that's not good enough for me, I don't want no hormones, but then they're willing to pay more. So we talked about space and time. Let's talk about feed. Think of a cow. What do you think a cow usually eats? And I imagine that at home you're saying they eat grass. What is a chicken? What is a chicken supposed to eat? Well, they eat bugs and worms and seeds that they find on the ground. Grass should be cheap, right? Because like when I was a young boy, I would mow the lawn and we would put it in a bag and throw it out with the garbage. So if grass is so useless that we throw it out with the garbage, grass must be cheap. Do you know what's cheaper than grass? Do you know what's cheaper? Because after all, if these factory farms have so many cows that they're jamming them into tight spaces, then there are too many cows to let them wander around the fields outside. There's just not enough fields to feed that many cows. So instead, so what they would have to do is have grass shipped in if they really, really wanted to have grass-fed cows. Well, do you know what's cheaper than shipping in grass? Corn is cheaper. Especially when you're shipping in corn, it's cheaper than shipping in grass. Why? How is this possible? Corn is like corn, right? A farmer has to grow corn. So, but grass just grows. Why don't you just send a million lawnmowers across the country, cutting up the grass, wrapping it in bags, and sending it to the farms? Why didn't you just do that? It's cheaper to grow the corn. How is this possible? The Farm Bill. Okay, a little bit of history, a very, very tiny bit of history. The American creation myth, the American creation legend is that this country was built on farmers, which is true. It's true. Around the time that this country got its independence from England, the vast majority of people here living on this continent were farmers. And the proportion of the farmers to the rest as a proportion of the population has shrunk a lot. However, the story, the nation building legend of this country is that this country was built on farms, on farmers. Farmers made this country. So year after year, whenever the farmers have a hard time, like it's been a bad growing season, then the lawyers, the Congress people in the Capitol say we have to protect the farmers. Farmers are what made this country great. And they pass a law, or they renew the law, the Farm Bill. And basically the Farm Bill goes, as my oversimplified misunderstanding of the Farm Bill goes, that they pay the farmers a certain amount of money as like a supplement to their crops. Like if you have this many acres of farmland dedicated to growing one of these things, then the United States government will guarantee that you make a profit off of this acre per acre. That way, if you have a bad growing season, it doesn't destroy you. Which is it sounds great on paper, but then as an individual who is out to game the system to maximize profits, what would you do if the market for corn, let's say, says the world has enough corn, thank you very much, we're not going to buy you anymore, we're not going to buy any more next year, then what would you do as a farmer? You would grow something else, right? The market does not support the grain you are about to plant, you would go plant something else. But this time, because of the Farm Bill, a corn farmer who has all the machinery, all the process, all the contracts, all the deals specified for corn says, well, if the government's going to buy my corn anyway, if the government's going to pay for my corn anyway, I'm going to grow it anyway, whether the market wants it or not. So we make a lot of corn. America makes a lot of corn. Even when the market says we don't need more corn. And the farmers still make more corn. And they do the same with wheat, rice, sugar, soybeans, dairy. Dairy is not a plant. Yes, I know. But the Farm Bill extends to dairy. So these farmers make way more of each of these than is needed. And let's go back to focusing on corn. The farmers make way more corn than is needed. They sell it to popcorn makers, and there's still too much corn left over. They sell it to corn canneries. There's still too much corn left over. And so the people stuck with the supplies of corn says, we got to do something. Where are we going to where are we going to send this corn? Nobody else wants more corn. And so they sell it to the animal farms. And they go to the animal farms and say, you want to feed your animals? Well, corn has a lot of calories, has a lot of nutrients, it has a lot of this, a lot of that. It's perfect. It's what life needs. Buy our corn. And you know what? There's so much corn in supply that we can make it cheaper than grass. And so these animal farmers who are about to buy like a gazillion tanker cars full of grass can save a lot of money by buying corn instead. So that's why cows are fed corn. If you buy the cheapest beef in your supermarket aisle, it's beef that was grown on corn. If you say that's not good enough, that's not enough that I don't want corn raised cows, I want grass raised cows, because who knows what corn has done to the cow biochemistry. I want cows grown on grass. You're going to have to pay more. For example, dairy. How much is a gallon of milk? Gallon of milk cost. Let's even look at the inflation adjusted numbers. Who's this? Cornell University? Well, all right. $4.34 per gallon nationwide, national average, $4.34. So you may say, what? No, $4.33 here in my store. Yeah, New York City milk is more expensive. Okay, gallon of organic milk. Okay, now what's this? Northeast Organic Dairy Producers Alliance. The problem is we're now comparing two separate information sources. Let's do it this way. A gallon of organic milk. $12.99, $9.99, $6.99, $6.99, $9.75, and then regular milk, $6, $5.99, $3.99, $4. See, so organic milk is more expensive. And now let's look at grass-fed milk. Grass-fed milk. $9.75. That's still organic. $6.50. This is the one I've seen in stores. $7. Is this a gallon? Because this is looking like a half gallon container. Oh, it's a half gallon. $7 for a half gallon. Before it was regular milk. What's a brand that I've seen around here? $5 for a whole gallon. See the difference? So $5 for a whole gallon. We're looking at, well, $4.50 for a whole gallon. That's $2.25 for a half gallon versus $7 for a half gallon of grass-fed. You're going to pay more. You care about grass-fed cows, you're going to pay more. I don't want to spend that much money on milk, so I buy the ordinary milk. Okay. So the corn growers sell excess corn to animal farms. Is that it now finally? Are we finally using up all the corn? No. We still have too much corn left over, even after all that. So what do we do with the rest of the corn? With some of it, we turn into gasoline, ethanol. For those of you who own cars and have to pump gas, then all of the ethanol gas station ethanol stickers. So all of the, let's get out of the shopping thing. All of the gas station pumps will have a sticker like this, contains up to 10% ethanol. I think I've seen 15% ethanol elsewhere. On the pumps. So yes, corn is used to supplement the gasoline in our cars. Part of it is to ease our dependence on petroleum as a nation, but also part of it is to do something with all of this corn that we have. Anyway, so we've got corn made into popcorn and canned corn and sweet corn, and then whatever's left over, some of it is sold to animal farms, and then of whatever's left over, some of it is turned into gasoline. Is that it now? Did we use up all the corn? No, we still have too much corn left over. The rest of the corn is made into sugar, fructose. Fructose is a kind of sugar. Originally, the name is from fruit, sugar from fruit, but the chemical structure is what corn is turned into. The actual full name is high fructose corn syrup, and then to save space on the nutrition label, they were saying HFCS, but then customers were saying, oh my God, I don't want no chemicals in my body, so they were avoiding things with letters in it. And so they started to change it to just ordinary fructose on the label. This is sugar. It's the same calorie, same obesity risk factor as regular table sugar, which is sucrose. And so this is fructose. How much sugar? From now on, we're going to call it sugar because that's what it is. How much sugar is in your soda? And here is a nice diagram here. There. Good luck finding a can of soda these days because you go to the vending machine. The smallest thing you can buy on the vending machine is one of these quarter-gallon bottles. And then you go to the grocery store and everybody buys the 2-liter bottles. And this is how much sugar you're putting into your body. Imagine going to a grocery store. Imagine going to the convenience store or like a fast food restaurant and say, I just want a cup of coffee. And the cashier says, sure thing, mister. How much sugar would you like in it? And you say, I want 10 packets of sugar. They're going to look at you funny, but you're paying for it, right? Give the customer what they want. So they go to that sugar pump machine, or they reach into the bucket and they pull out 10 packs of sugar, give it to you with your cup of coffee, and you mix it all together. How is that going to taste? That was a trick question. You won't be able to taste it. You would turn it into a slurry. You would turn it into a sauce. And when you turn the cup upside down, it would not pour out. It would be so thick that it would not pour out. Then how can you jam this much sugar into this much fluid and still make it taste good and still fresh and crispy and watery, fluidy? How is that possible? They do things, as in the soda company, does things so that chemically, so that it still looks and acts and tastes like a delicious drink, but you just can't sense it. Oh, by the way, they do things to make it less sweet. They add this much sugar, but they make it not taste as sweet as this much sugar should make it. Why would they do that? Why would they add this much sugar and then go an extra step to make it not taste as sweet? Why don't they just add less sugar and then they don't have to do the extra steps? So what happens is you don't taste this sugar, but your body feels the sugar. This much sugar going into your body will feel it. And remember what I've been saying for the past 7 lectures? The past 7 lectures, because this is lecture 8, I've been saying that the food companies trick your body into craving more. You won't taste this much sweetness, but your body, when it feels this burst of energy source, will reward you and say, I want more, I need more, give me more. And so you feel this compulsion to go buy another can, or to buy another bag of potato chips, or to buy another entree, because they sneak in the sugar even though you can't taste it, because your body will tell you, your mind, I don't care what resolutions you made in New Year's, I don't care what plans you have for the summer, I want you to buy another can, and you go buy another can. As you read the labels, as you're looking for HFCS and you don't see it, what you can instead look for is fructose. You can look for maize syrup. Maize is corn. You can look for fructose and other chemical derivatives of sugar, like sugar alcohol, maltodextrose. These are all ways to add more calories and carbohydrates into your body without you tasting the sugar. And also gaming the nutrition label to trick you into putting more sugar into your body. Why? To make you buy another can, to make you buy another bag. Sugar is the new tobacco. Sugar is contributing to obesity. Not sugar by itself, but the sugar, which is the part of the larger category of carbohydrates. Carbohydrates and our overeating of carbohydrates is causing obesity. But sugar is like the worst part. For some Americans, sugar is just literally poison for their body. I'm talking about the diabetic, people with diabetes. But anyway, sugar is the new tobacco. What do I mean by that? You don't smoke sugar, so why am I able to say sugar is the new tobacco? It's like this. Back when everybody smoked cigarettes and pipes, back then you literally had doctors advertising cigarettes. So, doctor advertising cigarette. You had doctors saying, I tell my patients to smoke this because it's whatever, scientifically proven that smoking is good for you, or that's what he said. Okay, now no doctor will ever say that today, but this is what they used to do in the past. And then research came out saying smoking is bad for you. It causes lung cancer. And the tobacco companies, seeing a threat to their profits, started publishing their own scientific research saying that actually smoking is good for you. Smoking does not cause cancer. And it doesn't matter if their science is actual junk. All they wanted to do was fill the literature with contradictory titles, articles. It doesn't matter if anybody read the article, as long as people saw the title of the article, so that all they want to do is make the general public say the ominous words, I don't know what to believe anymore. That's all. That's it. As long as the customer says, I don't know what to believe anymore, then at least that means they're not reading the real science articles that says smoking is bad. And the tobacco companies have won. And they were winning too. And not only that, but all the money that was going into big tobacco, they were paying for lobbyists to go to Congress to influence the decisions of politicians. So any laws that tried to reduce people smoking were blocked by the lobbyists, and so tobacco was winning for a while. But eventually the science finally won, and it became undeniable, irrefutable that smoking is bad for you. Nicotine and smoking does cause cancer. So finally, after a long time, tobacco finally lost, and now they have to put labels on their packages saying, smoking is bad for you. They have to actually put it on their products. Where did tobacco get these strategies from? I mean, who taught tobacco to behave this way in order to protect their profits? The car companies. This started a long time ago when the science was showing that people really should wear seat belts when they drive. And back then, a long time ago, they didn't. Cars originally did not go out with seat belts. And so when more and more public health officials started saying, you really should put seat belts in your cars, the car companies are thinking, they're not thinking of like customer safety. They're thinking of, we have to install seat belts now. That's going to increase cost. It's going to hurt our profits. So they published science articles saying seatbelts do not help. They were out to try to make the average customer say, I don't know what to believe anymore. They were sending lobbyists to Congress to block seatbelt laws. But eventually, much later, they finally lost, and now seatbelts are required in all cars. So this playbook was used by big tobacco to at least keep their profits for a little bit longer, and now this playbook is being used by big sugar, the sugar industrial complex, to keep their profits for a little bit longer. They are publishing articles. They are buying social media influencers to tell the average public that sugar is not bad for you, that it blame the victim, don't blame the companies. And people who research, do their own research, come into these contradictory articles, and people today say, I don't know what to believe anymore. And the sugar industry, as long as they say, I don't know what to believe anymore, the sugar industry is winning. So one of these days then, if history repeats itself, eventually, I don't know, maybe by the time your kids are growing up, that finally society will recognize that, the previous 100 years we were eating too much. It was just bad for us. Have a walk up and down your cereal aisle, the bread aisle, and the produce aisle, I guess, fruits and vegetables. And every once in a while you'll run across a sticker proudly saying this product is non-GMO. Genetically modified organisms, at least the way the public it's generally used, is in a science lab they modify the DNA of the thing, of the grain, of the plant, so that it creates a version with an attribute it wants. The most common use is, let's say a plant is getting really ravaged by a parasite, an insect or something that is destroying crops. And in the old days, they would use a pesticide to kill that specific bug or all bugs in general. And that's kind of a problem in itself, right? People don't want to eat pesticides. But not only that, not only customer perception, but also bugs, parasites, really, and then other environmental challenges can really limit the amount of product that makes it to market. A lot of product gets destroyed in the growing phase, in the harvesting phase, and so profit is lost. So a way to save money and to save money is they find like something else that is especially resistant to that challenge. Like if it's a bug that's causing a problem, then they look around the world for something that can defeat the bug. Maybe make the plant taste so bad to that bug that the bug doesn't want to eat it anymore. Well, and then they figure out how that other thing is made. Like if they found another plant that the bug cannot stand the taste of, they find out what the chemical exactly is that the bug doesn't like. They then find out what the gene, the DNA code is that makes that chemical, and they splice that gene into the corn plant or whatever it is they are trying to grow. And so from then on, that plant will grow that molecule and the insect doesn't want to eat it anymore. That's genetic modification. If you're thinking now, messing around with a living organism's DNA, that's kind of like playing God, isn't it? That's like messing with the blueprint of life. Isn't that how like superheroes are made in the comic books? So comic books are comic books, but messing around with the blueprint of life like you are playing God, that is a real argument, that is a real criticism, and that's part of why the public, the discerning public, the picky public, don't want any GMO in their food. They're saying these scientists are acting like Frankenstein. They are creating new versions of life when humans don't really know what they're doing. They're going to make a monster. It's going to create a problem. Well, has it? So far, it has not. By now, the GMO has been around long enough that long-term studies can be done, and so far there are no long-term side effects of eating GMO food. It hasn't been around that long, but it's been around long enough that I'm no longer concerned about GMO. Again, GMO means the food is going to be more expensive. Non-GMO foods are more expensive. Non-GMO foods do have to use more pesticides. So there's that, right? So for me, I'm all about the price. I haven't seen anything that convinces me that GMO is unhealthy, so I don't care. But if you do care, then you're going to have to pay more. And that's what this entire lecture is about. If you do care about any of these risks that seem, any of these reasons that make food seem risky to you, then you're going to have to pay more. That's pretty much what it comes down to. If you don't care, if the only thing I care about is that it passed FDA inspection, As long as the Food and Drug Administration says it's good enough, it's safe enough, then that's enough for me. Okay, globalization. So I hinted earlier in this lecture that other countries don't have the health and safety laws that the United States does. Some countries have more. Some countries have more stricter health and safety laws so that US made food is not allowed in that country. Some countries ban American beef. Some countries ban American corn. Well, there are some countries that ban American corn, ban American GMO. But there are some countries whose laws are so weak and ineffective that the food that they make is actually pretty risky. And then they find their way into this country because those countries that don't have strict and enforced health and safety laws, they can make products way cheaper than Americans can because they don't spend any of that money on health and safety. So they sell their products for way cheaper, and there's somebody in this country who want to buy it, and so they bring it in. What can I do about that, or what do I do about that? I try to buy American, and if anything, any food is like actually imported, proudly imported, then I pay a careful attention to which country it came from. And if I don't know, if I'm not sure, then I simply look it up on the internet. Is this food safe? Has there been any product recalls about this food? Have there been any foodborne illnesses from this product, from this country? And then if everything is fine, looks fine, and then I wanted to buy this anyway, then I'll give it a chance. There's another globalization issue with importing food, and that's food miles. Even if it is cheaper to bring this product, this brand from halfway around the world, cheaper to buy this one than to buy this other competitor version that was made here in the United States, there's another cost to the future. We as consumers, we don't incur the cost ourselves. We actually benefit from the cheaper prices, but there is a cost that we are putting on the future generation, which is climate change. Climate change, as far as the science is shown, is partly caused or worsened by our fossil fuel burning. And in order to ship this can of food from around the world, it uses a fuel. It uses the fuel of the boat that has to ship it halfway around the world. That's food miles. So this website will talk about how much fuel it takes to transport your favorite food, and you can look. You can. What you do is, if you find out where your favorite food came from, and then you, that was an ad. Oh my God, that was an ad. Whew. Wow, that was sneaky. Really, really sneaky. Yeah, I almost fell for it. So, like, you import food from, okay, default is United Kingdom. Didn't I just, where are you? Okay, United States. And then you got a food from, I don't know, I'm just picking something random, Switzerland. What are you tracking? Apples. Submit. I don't know. I've never bought a Swiss apple, so I don't know. From capital of Switzerland to the capital of the United States, travel 4,000 miles. And so what you do is, if you care about the fuel that is burnt to get what you want, then you can use this website. Okay. Sometimes food imported into this country causes food poisoning. Sometimes food made in this country causes food poisoning, and we don't hear about it. It slips through the FDA, and then we don't hear about it until the hospitals start reporting an outbreak. And then eventually the officials, government officials, start, take over and do what they can to minimize or handle the problem. What can we do about it? Stay educated, stay alert. Every once in a while there are food recalls announced, and instead of skipping through the news, zooming down the news to the entertainment section to learn about your favorite celebrity, why not pay a few seconds, invest a few seconds in checking out the news articles, the health news articles, just to see if there have been any recent food outbreaks, food poisoning outbreaks in your area about foods that you eat. Let's do that. Let's go to Google. Let's go to news. All the way at the end here, there's a section called health. It's below science, which is below sports. So that's just a reflection of how the general public feels. They think sports is more interesting than science, and science is more interesting, and health is the least interesting of them all. All right, that's just the world we live in. That's humans being humans. There's not really much we can do. All right, how about a recall? Is there a recall? Okay, so here are some results of some recalls. E. coli linked onions, you know what I'm talking about. So yeah, check every once in a while, check to see if there's been any recalls or food poisoning outbreaks in your area, to see if is there anything you should be avoiding. And as a global consumer, as a citizen of the world, education is really the key. And then education means getting the information, but then thinking critically means not believing every piece of information you get. Not only be suspicious of social media influencers, but be suspicious of all information. Always double check the information. Don't rely on artificial intelligence to do the fact checking for you, because artificial intelligence sometimes gets it wrong. Be suspicious of advertising campaigns. And the worst example of a corporate advertising campaign that really turned into a joke is free range. You may think of free range as applied to chickens, free range chickens, and you imagine a free range chicken means a happy chicken running up and down green fields. Yeah, let's go with that. Running up and down green fields, living a happy life. All right, free range. Let's just go with that. Free range chickens. Okay, so this is what you imagine when you see the word free range. This is what free range is. This is free range. And it's not so much that there's a little bit more space between each chicken. Oh, I guess it's going off the screen here. This is what free range means, and it doesn't just mean that there's a little more space between each chicken. The definition of free range, as defined by the Congress of the United States, are these windows. Do you see my mouse? No, my mouse is not. Okay, now you see my mouse. You see these windows along the side? According to US law, as long as they have these windows along the side of the factory farm, you can label your chicken free range. How did it get to that? Oh well, free range used to mean this. But then what happened is when the term free range became popular, then more and more of like the richer Americans started demanding free range chicken, and like sellers started to respond by buying more free range chickens, and the regular chicken factory farms started seeing their profits dipping. It was hurting their profits, so they started labeling their range they started labeling their chickens free range too. But then the people who did make legitimate, honest free range chickens, they started complaining and saying, you can't do that. That's not, you're corrupting the definition of free range. So what did the factory farms do? Well, they took their gigatons of money, went to Congress, and had the law passed saying that as long as there are windows that are open, you can label it free range. So that's what free range means. It is a joke. It is a joke. Do not pay money because it says free range. Okay, so if you want a chicken that is raised ethically, then what you can, well, our best choice right now is why does it say watch? Is this a video? Instagram. Right, Instagram. Sure. Who's this? Holistic mother. I have no idea what a holistic mother is. Let's see. Well, the idea is, unless you, the only real way, if you do have the money and you do care, the only way to make sure that your chicken is raised like this, running up and down fields, pecking away, living a happy chicken life, is to actually know the farmer, as in like live near, like within driving range of a chicken farmer. Then the quality of your eggs will actually be superior, and all that good stuff, and you will feel better, your conscience will be cleaner. If you are stuck inside Queens like me, in a giant city like me, and you don't know any farmers, and you don't know how to get to like a farmer's market, then the next best thing I've heard is pasture raised. Let's go back to the Holistic Mother. I have no idea what the Holistic Mother website is like, but the things I've heard about pasture raised is like, yeah, the chickens are in a pasture. So, okay, pasture raised eggs. And then let's go shopping. Pasture raised eggs. And you're looking at, for a dozen, $104. No. $12, $12, $10, $10, $10, $12. See what I'm getting at here? What about regular eggs? What about regular eggs? A dozen, $4, $5, $4. See what I'm getting? See, so you're paying 3 times more for pasture-raised eggs, and that's if you care. Why do I buy regular eggs? I care. I just can't afford pasture-raised eggs. I eat 2 eggs a day. I cannot afford pasture-raised eggs. Okay, so I've been making fun of rich people, but seriously, there are people who can't even afford to eat the cheap food. They are suffering from what's called malnutrition. I need to emphasize that mal means bad. So malnutrition is not only not eating enough, But sometimes malnutrition can also mean eating too much. Eating too much what? Eating too much carbohydrates, intaking too much salt, intaking too much trans and saturated fats. That's also malnutrition. But with the terms undernutrition, now we're talking not eating enough. And there's something called food insecurity where even Americans are suffering from it. What then the word is, you're eating enough for today or nowadays, but you cannot be sure that you will have enough to eat tomorrow or in the short-term future. And then that means people who are lowest in the income level, below the poverty line, even with charity programs and groups out there to support them. And nutrition is really very important. I've already defined this, I think, in a previous lecture. Hunger is you don't get enough calories. That's it. You ate fast food like a hamburger, egg McMuffin, and like a chicken burger every day. You will never go hungry, but you will be severely malnourished because you're not getting enough fiber, not getting enough vitamins, not getting enough of the micronutrients. Is it possible to be well nourished, get a balance of everything you need, but still be hungry? Oh yeah, that's me. I'm on a diet, so I am carefully meeting my nutritional needs, but I am hungry all the time. So there are charity programs out there to provide nutritional supplements, especially for children, because the children are our future. Okay, the second half of this lecture, oh my god, second half. Hey, I have you for 3 hours, I'm going to use all of it. Toxins. So yes, as we put food in our body, we have to watch out that we don't put toxins in our body. And let's start with water. Sorry, somehow this slide got moved. If the FDA, Food and Drug Administration, was to patrol and enforce food safety, the Environmental Protection Agency is here to protect us from toxins in the air, land, and water. Air, land, and water. Toxins to us that are not in the jurisdiction of the EPA are nuclear waste, and that's because the significance of the nuclear waste, that it has to be its own separate agency, the seriousness of it. And when we're talking about air, land, and water, you may think, well, wilderness, our national parks, that's air, land, and water, and you would be right. But there are some endangered species that are a serious problem by itself, so they are a separate organization too. Now let's go to the water. So we're going to talk about water and then a little bit of air and a little bit of land, but mainly water. So we in this country are really blessed because of our modern sanitation system is able to ensure that we have drinkable water at our fingertips at a moment's notice. The commotion you hear upstairs from my landlord is because we're having a little issue with our hot water, but this is like really rare. We haven't had a hot water issue here in this building since I think it was 5 years ago. So yeah, it's unfortunate, but they'll fix it because the landlord is affected too. So they have an incentive to fix this as soon as possible. And I don't have anything planned for tomorrow except to work from home and to go to the gym. And I don't need to take a shower to do either. So I can wait. But otherwise, I have access to reliable, clean drinking water and hot water most of the time. So I consider myself lucky. I've lived in places where that was not a guarantee, where all drinking water had to be bought out of the bottle, that the water out of the faucet was too dangerous to drink. And when I got back into the US, I was so grateful But being in this country is not a guarantee of safe drinking water. There is a recent history from Flint, Michigan. So I didn't live there, but I was an adult when this story hit the news, and it captured the nation's consciousness for a while. And so you can read the official government's version of the story, but don't stop there. You can go look up the news articles from there and how the people of Flint, Michigan, were pretty much ignored at the beginning, and not only ignored by government officials, but even ignored by the EPA, who were failing in their duty to protect the public. Very tragic story, a horrible story, and really makes you shake your head about the inefficiencies and corruption of our system. Just across the river in New Jersey, it seems like between every 2 and 5 years, New Jersey has a drinking water crisis. Something about the New Jersey water system. So one or more towns in New Jersey have to get a boil water advisory, and then they only drink bottled water, etc. Hydrofracking, if it's in your area, which not in Queens, but for those of you who end up living like somewhere else outside of New York State, then you could end up in a hydrofracked area. And what happens is hydrofracking is a way to get more petroleum out of the ground. So for our national security, I guess that's a good thing. But unfortunately, the areas that are hydrofracked complain of water contamination. And I don't really have it for a course in nutrition. There isn't really time to go into it. So you can search your favorite search engine. You can look for stories of hydrofracking, and you get stories of like earthquakes where there used to be none in that area since like the ice ages. Then there are stories of water or fluid that comes out of the faucet that's actually flammable. Like it's on YouTube. You go to YouTube, you search for hydrofracking, and you'll get a few videos of somebody turning on the faucet and then bringing a lighter to that liquid, and it catches on fire. And these are from hydrofracking. In general, when we worry about pesticides in our farms, there are two concerns for nutrition health. There's the pesticide that stays on the fruit and vegetables, and that is a real thing. So whatever your favorite fruit or vegetable is, you just simply rinsing it under the faucet is actually not enough. You really should search for how to clean your fruit or vegetable to get the pesticide off. And then the other concern is that local to the farm, when they use pesticides and then it runs off because of the rain, and it goes into the streams and then the rivers, so the local area, the pesticides can get into the water table and then end up in the drinking water. Okay, so something more closer to home. Everybody should eat more fish, unless you have a medical reason not to. For example, you actually are allergic to fish, then don't. If your doctor says don't eat fish, don't. But if your doctor did not tell you not to eat fish, then you should, because fish is the best source of omega-3. Omega-3 is what we need to protect our brains and our hearts and our vasculature, cardiovascular, cerebrovascular system. It has been proven again and again that omega-3 is good for the heart and brain. Remember though, in the lecture on nutrients, that you don't want to eat omega-6. Omega-6 is plentiful in animal meat, and we eat too much omega-6 in the United States because many of our meals are heavy in the meats and the fats, but we don't get enough omega-3. If you just don't like the taste of fish, and I don't blame you, I'm not a fan of fish either, So what do? Well, there are land-based sources of omega-3, just nowhere near the amounts that fish can give you. So you're going to have to use your favorite browser and search for alternate sources like land-based sources of omega-3 and just eat more of it. Those land-based sources can also be kind of pricey. Just be aware of that. And before you buy an omega-3 supplement, ask your doctor. Anyway, we should all get more omega-3 in our diets and get fish if you can. So I'm not a fan of fish, but I do force myself to eat sardines at least twice a week, sometimes 3 times a week. Okay. Why sardines? Because it's the cheapest kind of fish I can buy, and it's very convenient. I don't have to cook it, which means I don't have to fill my apartment with the smell of cooking fish. I just open the sardine can, I wolf it, wolf it down like it's medication, which it is for me, and that's it. I'm done with the omega-3 for the week. Okay, so we should eat, those of us who can should eat more fish, but not too much fish. Why not too much fish? Because there's toxins in the oceans. Toxins in the oceans. 1,000,000 years ago, the oceans were fine. 1,000 years ago, the oceans were fine. And then in the 1900s, the Industrial Revolution took off all around the world, and factory after factory started dumping toxic waste into the rivers and the oceans. And at the time, the thought was the oceans are so vast, there's nothing humans could possibly do to change it. Well, as it turns out, we can. Mercury levels, factories have been dumping mercury into the oceans for the past 100 years, and now every fish in the ocean has mercury in it. There's no fish in the ocean that does not have mercury. Some fish have more, some fish have less. Why do we care about mercury? Mercury is toxic to the brain. So ironically, we're eating more fish because it's good for the brain, but now we have to not eat too much fish because it's toxic to the brain. And pregnant women and children should be especially careful because the developing embryo and growing children are growing their brains, and so anything that's toxic to brain development needs to be avoided. Which kinds of fish have more mercury and which kinds of fish have less mercury? So what's going on? Can you see this? Let me move to can you see this? Okay, so this is a zoomed in of the picture on the slide. You see these little gray dots? So that represents the mercury in the ocean, and the tiny fish, just by living in the water, takes a little mercury into the body, and then bigger fish eat the smaller fish until the biggest fish, the apex predators of the ocean, have the most mercury. So what kinds of fish should you avoid? Apex predators like shark, swordfish. What kinds of fish should you go for? The smaller fish. The smaller fish, especially fish that are known to feed on plankton, and that's what sardines are. Sardines are small fish that mainly live on plankton and crustaceans. The fish in the middle, like tuna, they have a medium level of mercury, and then fishes with medium levels of mercury are safe for grown adults, because by the time we're over 25, our brains have finished developing. So mercury that's toxic to the brain, not so much of a danger to humans who are already full-sized adults. You can still be very toxic. So nobody should be eating swordfish or shark. Well, shark is an endangered species, so you shouldn't be eating shark for that reason either. But no fish in the high mercury scale should be eaten by anybody, because it's just too much mercury after 100 years of industrial pollution. But full-grown adults can eat fish in the middle mercury levels, and children and pregnant women should eat fish in the low mercury levels. How do you know where your fish are in the mercury level? Search for it. So you go to your favorite search engine, look up your favorite fish, and find out where they are. Let's see. This link that I provided, let's go have a look. So here's one table of a fish eating guide. Pregnancy, breastfeeding, 2 to 3 servings on the best. And these are best because of low toxins here in this chart. Can you see my mouse? Yeah, okay. The adults, fully grown adults, you can feel safe eating fish around here. And then nobody should eat any of these. Stay away from these. At our income category, at our level of income, a popular fish food is tuna fish, like out of a can. Where's tuna? Well, tuna is here in the best choice. Tuna is here in the medium choice. Tuna is here in the avoid choice. How is this possible? Tuna is just a category. Tuna is not a specific fish. Tuna is just a category. When you buy tuna fish, then the cheapest tuna fish cans is a mix of all of them. They just, whatever fish qualifies as tuna, they just grind it up in a blender and squirt it into the can. So if you really want to eat tuna, read the label carefully, read the ingredients carefully, find out exactly what kind of tuna it is, and then look it up. Look it up how? Simply like this. Take your favorite fish. I used to eat a lot of salmon, not anymore, but I'll explain why. And then mercury. I always skip the artificial intelligence answer. Aha, look at this. Not the article. Who wrote it? Wild Alaska Company. This website is a company that sells fish. Where's the other one? Where's the other one? I'm not saying all of them, but when you search for mercury in fish, anything that is a .com, a website that ends in .com, usually it could be a company whose purpose for existing is to sell more fish. So what do you think they're going to say about mercury and fish? What are they going to say about their own products? Like their product, are they going to say don't buy this product even though we sell it because it's too high in mercury? No, they're going to say don't worry, there's no problem, eat as much as you can, eat as much as you like. In fact, if you buy it from this website, you can even get a discount, etc., etc. So you want to watch out for that. I'm looking for a website that will rank the mercury in like low, medium, high. Low. No, that's it. They only have low. All right, let's go have a look here. Salmon. So according to this, according to harvard.edu, salmon is low. Okay, that's nice. Wild caught. Oh, farm raised. Well, okay, the thing with farm raised, most farm raised fish is low in mercury, and I will show you why soon. In fact, I'll tell you right now. Okay, 200 years ago, people thought that the ocean was so vast that humanity could not make a single dent in it. There's nothing that humans can do to change the oceans because it's so vast and humans are so few. Well, it's 100 years have passed by, and now we realize that actually humans can change the ocean. We can pollute it, we can dump plastics into it, turn it into microplastics, and now microplastics are found in all fish, and we can overfish it. We used to think that fish from the ocean is infinite. There's an infinite supply, and there's nothing that humans can do to change the source, change the availability of fish in the ocean. Well, now we know that we can actually overfish the ocean. And there is a real concern that we are, as populations increase and everybody, well, most people want fish, that we could actually drive popular species of fish into extinction from overfishing. So there, out of this concern, there was a great idea, and it sounded great on paper. Fish farms. What they do is they take a section of the shoreline, or sometimes they just make swimming pools now, and fill it with seawater and raise fish. So there, we don't have to overfish the ocean. We can just grow our own fish and sell it on the market. Everybody's happy, right? So a corporation made a fish farm. Guess what they're going to try to do? Maximize profits. How do you maximize profits? Reducing cost. How do you reduce cost? With space, time, and feed. How do you reduce space? Well, you keep the space amount the same, but what you do is you jam more fish into the same space to minimize cost. What happens when you jam a lot of animals into a small space? If one of them gets an infection, they all get infected. So you dump antimicrobials into the food, into the water, whether they are sick or not, to make sure they don't get sick. But that drives the creation of antimicrobial resistant superbugs. Time. How do you make fish grow up faster so you can send them to market sooner, so you can realize your profit sooner? Hormones, to make the fish grow up faster and bigger too. How do you reduce cost on food? Well, what do fish eat? Little fish. What do little fish eat? Plankton. But that means, where do you find these plankton and little fish? You go out into the ocean and you bring them back. Well, that's really expensive. You gotta buy boats, you gotta hire staff, and there's that thing about overfishing the oceans, right? That was why factory farms were created in the first place. So is there anything else you can feed fish that's cheaper and still fills them with calories? Corn. Are fish supposed to eat corn? Who cares? Does anybody care? As long as they get enough calories. Isn't that what it's all about? Well, some people do care, and so they don't want to buy factory farmed fish. And now there's one more problem when you don't feed them plankton. Fish, wild caught fish out in the ocean, is the best source of omega-3. What about factory farmed fish? Wild caught fish have high omega-3 because they eat small fish, and the small fish eat plankton. Plankton is where omega-3 comes from, or at least ocean omega-3 comes from. That's why wild-caught fish is high in omega-3. When you fill a swimming pool with seawater and then you jam fish, you pack the fish in to make them grow up in that small space, they are not eating enough plankton or any plankton at all. So the original fish coming out of the early factory farms did not have any omega-3. And then as the interest in omega-3 by the general public kept growing, people started wondering, why does this fish not have omega-3? And then they found out, oh my God, it was grown in a factory farm. So the corporations got nervous, and they what do? Well, they can't go out into the ocean and collect plankton. That's too much money. So what they do is they get land-based omega-3 and inject it or insert it into the fish food. But didn't I say that land-based omega-3 is not as dense, not a good source of omega-3? Yes, that's what I said. So the fish you get out of factory farms are not as high in omega-3 as wild caught. Now, next time you go to the supermarket and you look at the salmon or any fish and it says on the label high in omega-3, be suspicious, because it's going to say how many milligrams of omega-3 there are, and then you Google for how many milligrams of omega-3 you're supposed to get, and you'll see that the omega-3 milligrams in the farm factory fish are low, nowhere near as high as from wild caught fish. So you're going to have to eat more farmed fish to get the same omega-3 as, well, you're practically going to have to eat the amount that you were going to eat of land-based omega-3 sources to get the omega-3 you need just from farm fish. I said my favorite, oh, well, here's the, I guess I could have been here. I guess I could have talked from this slide. Oh, by the way, if you like tilapia, which is like among the cheapest fish of all, don't Google it. Fair warning, I'm not saying tilapia is bad for you. I'm not saying tilapia is unhealthy. I'm just saying, if you want to keep eating tilapia, do not Google its source. Fair warning. Here we go. Salmon. Do you know what else is in that plankton? Especially the kind of plankton that salmon eat. The color. Salmon flesh has this glowing, rosy, orange, pinkish color. That everybody loves and looks for. But that's from wild-caught salmon. But if you buy factory farm salmon, the flesh is going to look like ordinary fish meat, fish flesh. It's not going to have that beautiful pink orange color. I'm not seeing any pictures here for it. Oh well. Why not? Because they're not wild caught. They didn't live out in the ocean. They didn't eat the plankton, so they didn't pick up the color. So they're gray. They're gray like ordinary fish. So customers shopping for factory farm salmon, they see this color, go, this is not salmon. What the hell are you doing? And so the corporations, what do? They add food coloring. And that's the world we live in. If you want old style, old school salmon, that's pink and high in omega-3, wild caught. Where do you get it? Trader Joe's, Whole Foods, and you're gonna pay a lot. Oh, how much? Let's go check it out. Wild caught salmon. Shopping. This is what you pay for wild caught salmon. If you go to your local grocery store, you're not going to see these prices. And then when you look in the back, the label, you're going to see food coloring in one of the ingredients. And between the two, the cheap price and the food coloring, you're going to realize it's factory farmed salmon. In my local grocery store, it's all factory farmed. They don't sell any wild caught salmon. And that's another reason why I only eat sardines, because sardines cannot be grown in the factory farms yet. They haven't figured out a way to do it. It's actually still cheaper to catch them in the wild. Plain water. We've been talking about things in the water. Let's talk about drinking plain water. Tap water in the cities must be disinfected to keep it safe for public consumption, at least in the United States. If you drink plain, ordinary water coming out of a stream in the forest, you're going to catch something. Some kind of parasite, some kind of brain-eating amoeba. Brain-eating amoeba. No, I don't want to buy it. I just want to learn about it. Brain-eating amoeba. These live in rivers and streams, and if you don't purify the water, you have a chance of catching it. It's going to crawl up to your brain and then procreate into the thousands. So you want to drink purified or disinfected water. You don't want to drink purified water. Sorry I said that. You want to drink disinfected water. Okay, cities disinfect the water. New York City disinfects the water, and New York City water is safe. Can you believe this? According to CNBC, which is a corporation, national broadcasting system, it's a news company, but I included it because it's humorous that they ranked New York City as among the top 3 of the nation in the quality of water as tap water. So that's cute. Okay, New York City adds chlorine and fluoride. If you Google for, let's do it. Fluoride. Always skip the artificial intelligence. Somewhere around here, fluoride safety. Somewhere around here, so that we're skipping over universities, research. We're looking for influencers, social media influencers. They're going to say fluoride is dangerous for you. Well, usually the search engine results lots of social media influencers and fake news, but for some reason this time it's not. It's filling up with government and university websites instead. Alright, well, if you go search for it, you're going to find stories saying fluoride is bad for you. Anything you take in too much is bad for you. Anything you take in too much is bad for you. Too much water is bad for you. So when they show you research articles saying that fluoride is bad, yes, of course, if you take fluoride in the amounts that research article put into the mouse, yes, it's bad. But in the small amounts that New York City puts into the drinking water, it protects teeth. How many times have you been to the dentist? You would have gone way more often if they didn't fluoridate the water. How many times have you been to the emergency room with bloody diarrhea? You would have gone way more often if they didn't put chlorine in the water. Now, New York City water is safe. However, if your landlord is some kind of slumlord and is cutting corners on safety and not taking care of the pipes, okay, maybe that water is not safe. But the water coming out of the taps or the fountains in Queensborough Community College, that's safe. However, that maybe not taste so good because you can taste the chlorine, you can taste the pipes, so maybe you don't like the taste of regular tap or fountain water, and so instead you would rather buy bottled water. I don't like any of the bottled water in the vending machines at Queensborough. The ones with the blue label, they all hurt my throat. But if it's fine with you, I'm good for you. Okay, so why do you think bottled water tastes better? Well, I just said there's no chlorine in it, and there's no pipe residue in it. Or is it? Could it be placebo effect? Could you think bottled water tastes better because of the placebo effect? Why would there be a placebo effect? There are no drugs involved. Placebo is not only about drugs. It's not only about scientific research. Placebo The placebo effect is when you convince yourself that something is true and your body reacts accordingly. So why did you convince yourself that bottled water tastes better? Well, you paid for it. You paid real money for it. When you pay for something, you feel like you like it better. Like there's a story of somebody at a vacation resort. He found some pretty rocks and he put it on a table and he charged $1 for it. And nobody was buying it. And all day tourists would pass by and nobody would buy it. It was very pretty. So what did he do? He changed it to $10 per rock, and suddenly everybody was buying it. When you pay for something, your mind plays a trick on you, make you think it has higher quality. So you pay for a bottle of water, you think it tastes better. You see that the package seals are intact. You twisted off the cap, and it gave that satisfying clicking sound that shows that it was secured. It used to be secure. So you feel like, oh, well, okay, so nobody tampered with this bottle, it's safe to drink, and you think it tastes better. Let me tell you a little bit about bottled water. Take your favorite plastic bottle, hold it in your hand. Doesn't matter, any plastic bottle will do. Just hold it in your hand. Now imagine a halfway point, and then imagine half of that, so it's a quarter. It took a quarter of the bottle full of petroleum to get that bottle in your hand. How is that possible? Well, plastic is made from petroleum, first of all, and the factory that made the plastic, turned the petroleum into plastic, uses energy. Where did that energy come from? Was it a coal-burning power plant? Was it an electrical power plant? Was it a gas-powered power plant? The electricity had to come from somewhere. And then the plastic was put in a truck, which used up gasoline to take it to another factory that turned it into bottles. And then it was transported by truck to another factory that was filling it with your favorite liquid. And then it was put into another truck that was sent to the warehouse of the supermarket, who put it in another truck to send it to the grocery store where you bought it. So all of those fuels, petroleum, fossil fuels, was used to make that bottle, and it results in millions and millions of gallons of petroleum for all the plastic bottles we use today. A complaint about plastic bottles is that, first of all, it has to be recycled here in New York City, and the recycling process is full of suspicion. There are people complaining that recycling plastic is not effective, it's not cost effective, it's not good enough, and the problem is getting worse. Whether you believe, even if you believe that, that makes it even more important to limit how many plastic bottles we buy, because if it's not properly recycled, then where is it going to end up? Landfills and in the ocean, where it's going to last for 1,000,000 years. So you see that the lid of the plastic bottle, the cap, is secure and was intact when you bought it, so you feel it's safe, right? So is bottled water safe? By law, bottled water does not need to be disinfected. In fact, by not having fluoride and chlorine in it, it doesn't have that chlorine taste, so that's why people want to buy it. But why do cities put chlorine in the water? To reduce water infection. So by purposely buying bottled water because it doesn't have chlorine, you are exposing yourself to a risk of waterborne infection. Does it happen? Yes. Waterborne infections from bottled water does happen. So the few times that the CDC finds out about it, because another law says that if there is a waterborne infection, the bottled water company does not have to report it. That's a weird law, but apparently it's a thing, and nobody seems to be doing anything about it. There's no law that says that if there is a waterborne infection from bottled water, that it has to be reported by the bottle making company. They are not required to warn the public of contamination. So if they're not required, then why would they? It would hurt sales. And finally, if you drink water out of a plastic bottle, you increase the chance of microplastics. Microplastics is a new thing, like only a couple of years old. So the research has yet to come in whether microplastics in our bodies actually cause a problem. I don't see why not. I don't see how they could not cause a problem. But so far, we're waiting for the research to come in. But what about you? You drank 1,000,000 bottles of water and you never got sick. See bell curve. Okay, bell curve is on the second midterm exam. Bell curve is on the final exam. The whole basic science lecture is on the midterm exam. The whole basic science lecture is on the final exam. So if bottled water is no longer your thing, if tap water, it just tastes weird, you don't want it, then what's the next thing to do? Filter your water. Have a home water filter. So the safest way to filter your water at home is a charcoal filter, or just plain boil it. But boiling does not remove contaminants like heavy metals like lead. Boiling just kills whatever was in it. But boiling water to drink is a little inconvenient, is a little tedious, and it uses up, your home energy bill. So people tend not to do that. But the people who do have some money do get a charcoal filter for their home. And now, what kind of device? Well, it depends on how much they will use. If you are in a large family or a small business, then you want to buy those giant jugs of water that bottled water companies bring in. You can buy heavy-duty filter systems for and that's like directly installed into your pipes. But if you're in a small family or living individually, then maybe a simple bucket pitcher will do. And this is what I use. The bucket pitcher is not as effective as a heavy-duty installed filter system. So the water that comes out is not as guaranteed to be healthy. But it does take the taste of tap water out. I have a bucket pitcher filter at home for my own use. I won't say the name, but there's really one dominant company that sells its products here in the drugstores and the supermarkets in my area. So you can probably guess what the name of that company is. But I've been using it for years, and the beauty of it is not only that it makes tap water taste better, but also I've stopped buying single-use bottles. There was a time when I was much younger, I would only drink bottled water, and I would go to the supermarket and bring home a case, 24 bottles of single-use water a week. And they were heavy, and I was lugging it home every week, if not more often. But now I don't buy single-use plastic bottles for water at home anymore. Instead, I have reusable bottles at home and reusable thermos for home drinking, and I fill my reusable bottles to bring to work and class. And I haven't bought any single-use bottles of water to use at home. Now, when I'm at school, sometimes I drink everything in all the reusable bottles I brought. It's been a thirsty day. I brought thirsty meal. I had a salty meal, and now I drink all the fluid that I brought with me. So, and I'm still thirsty. Then I'll go to the vending machine. I'll buy a seltzer from the vending machine. But that means I'm not perfect. But don't try to be perfect. What it means is I no longer buy as many plastic bottles as I used to. I still buy them, I just don't buy them as much as I used to. Imagine if everybody in the world bought half the bottles they used to. They still buy plastic bottles, they just buy half as many as they used to. Not only will the landfills and recycling centers and oceans and wilderness have half the plastic bottles dumped into them as they used to, but also the plastic bottle makers will see their profits tank. Their profits will be dropped by half because people are only buying half what they used to. So what will these bottle makers do? Well, they'll try to fight it, first of all, to protect their profits, but eventually they will adjust. They'll go make something else. They will switch to making reusable bottles. They will do something, and it's going to affect the economy for better. If everybody bought half the plastic bottles they used to. That's how we vote with our dollars. So I mentioned landfill, and now we're up to land, right? We talked about water, we talk a little bit about land, and now we're talking about landfills, which means recycling. Education and recycling is key. Don't throw your electronics into the waste bucket. You have to send it to a special place because electronics are full of toxins, and if you leave it in a landfill, it's going to put toxic waste into the landfill. You're supposed to send it to a special recycling center. Here in New York, we have our own recycling bins, and now we have to, starting this fall, we have to start separating out our compost too. And starting in spring 2025, people who don't will get a fine. I don't understand how this is supposed to work. It's going to be a headache or a real tedious extra work for me to separate out the compost, the biomatter from my garbage. But, the law is the law. I don't want to get my landlord fined. So definitely by the beginning of next year, I'll have figured this out, and I'll do my duty as a citizen of Queens, New York. We're all home stretch. Radiation, one of the last things to talk about here. And the word radiation, those of you who don't have any background in health or science, if you heard the word radiation, you're thinking of like nuclear radiation, and you may be thinking of like comic book radiation that makes comic book superheroes. In science, radiation is anything that expands from the center. So visible light out of a light bulb is radiation. When you listen to the radio, it's radiation. In fact, that's where the word radio came from radiation. The signal radiates out from a signal tower, and it's received by your consumer device, and it's converting the radio waves into music, and you have a nice time. That's radio. That's radiation. And microwaves are radiation, and that's why I brought up this topic for microwaves. No, the microwave oven does not make your food radioactive. That is just people who don't understand how microwaves work. There's two kinds of radiation. Non-ionizing, that's harmless, and that's the light bulbs, the radio waves, the magnetic field, electronics, TV signals, the heat. When you stand next to somebody and you can feel warmth coming off of their skin, what you're feeling are infrared waves. That's radiation. And microwaves are non-ionizing. They are harmless. When you think of nuclear radiation that's ionizing, we're not talking about nuclear radiation. The most likely exposure you've had to ionizing radiation is the X-rays from the doctor, and just living, because out in the air, out in the environment, there is natural background radiation. So microwaves are non-ionizing. They don't make your food radioactive. If you listen to your favorite social media influencer who says, don't microwave your food because microwave sounds sciencey and they don't want science in their foods, they don't know what the hell they're talking about. Okay. So how do microwaves work? Well, go search for microwave ovens, and everybody says the same thing. I'm not going to repeat what everybody says. That they vibrate water molecules, and the vibration causes friction, and the friction generates heat, and that's how it works. So that's why the thing in the microwave must be moist, at least have some water in it for the microwave to work. What are microwave ovens completely safe? No, microwave ovens can cause a burn or a fire, but so can an ordinary oven, so can your toaster. If you misuse your toaster, if you clown around with it, if you fool around with it, if you do stupid things with it to make a YouTube video, no wonder you just set your house on fire. So treat your appliances with respect, follow the directions. And the most common danger from a microwave oven is that the liquids in it get so hot that you burn your tongue, you burn your lips, and if you spill that on your skin, you burn your skin. But that's going to be the same with ordinary ovens. So yes, you use your microwave with the same care and safety concerns as an ordinary oven, and you'll be fine. Wow, we're at the end of this course. This is the takeaways: education, recycling, and be a citizen of the world, and finally be mindful, be aware, educate yourself, be a good citizen of Queens and New York, the city and the state, be a good citizen of the country, but also be a good citizen of the earth, because we're only borrowing this planet. We don't own it, we're only borrowing it. from the future generations. All right, you've heard enough from me to attempt the homework and the quiz, and hopefully heard enough from me to be safe with what you put in your bodies. So good luck on the homework and quizzes, and you will hear from me next week.